So, first we are just going to define constructions here. So on the first page of the notes where you can actually write, we are going to go ahead and add in our definition of a construction. So, a construction is a drawing of a geometric figure using only a straight edge and compass. So we will be using our ruler as our straight edge. Okay. All right. Oops. Okay, so now we are going to measure this segment AB to the nearest eighth of an inch and to the nearest millimeter. So we'll measure it in inches first. So take your ruler, put your 0 on point A. All right. So first of all, how many lines are there between 0 and 1? How many lines do we have? 16, right? So each line is a 16th of an inch, all right? They asked us to go to the nearest eighth of an inch, so we will simplify whatever we get for our fraction. Okay, so we can see that it goes to 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 lines past that, right? So this would be 1 and 4/16 of an inch, but they said they wanted it to an eighth of an inch, so I would simplify 4/16, right? I would simplify it down to what? Huh? Very good. So 1 and 2/8 of an inch, which we also know technically simplifies to a 1/4, right? Okay. So this has a length of 1 and 2/8 inches. Now we need to measure it in millimeters, which would be the other side of our ruler. So flip it around there. Okay, so each number is a centimeter, each line is a millimeter, right? So there are 10 lines for each one. So once I get to 3 centimeters, that's 30 millimeters. And it looks like it's about 2 lines past that, right? So 32 millimeters. Okay. They then want us to construct a segment that measures 2 times AB, and this is AB, right? So 2 of these, basically. All right, we are not just going to measure it with our ruler. This is just for going back to check how long it is, okay? So now we are going to need these instructions here, okay? So that first set of instructions is how to construct a congruent line segment. That's what we're going to be looking at, okay? So it says the first step is you get 1 free endpoint. So down here, where I'm supposed to be constructing this, I'm going to put some endpoint, okay? And what did it say on step 1 that we would label that point? A, and it has this little mark beside it, right? That means A prime. Okay, so we name this point A prime, and then it says starting at A prime, you're going to draw a segment longer than needed. Okay, so we're not going to freehand it. You're going to take your straight edge, okay, put it on that point, and make sure you make this segment much longer than what is actually needed. So more than 2 of these long, okay? Okay, so we have followed step 1, which was to draw the starting point, and step 2, which was to make a segment longer than needed. Now we're on step 3. Okay, this says you are going to place the pointed edge of your compass on point A, not A prime, A. So A was in the original, right? So you're going to take your compass and put the pointed end on A. So you would stand it up and put it right on that point A, okay? But in the meantime, you need to make sure that your compass is open or closed enough so that the pencil end will land on B, okay? So you want to make it wide enough so that it is exactly from A to B, okay? So point it in here and pencil end on B. All right, so once you have that, you are going to stand up your compass, making sure that your pencil end is on the point A, your pointed end is on the point A, and pencil end is on point B, okay? You're going to hold it from the top here, so the top of the compass up here at the top, okay? And you're just going to hold your paper still and move that compass back and forth like this to make an arc through the point B. Okay, so you should have your pointed end there, pencil end on B, and you made a small arc that goes through point B. Okay, once you do that, do not change the width of the compass at all. So you need to still be holding it from the top so that you won't move the distance. So if you moved it, you need to go back and remeasure and make sure you have it right. Do you have a question? You got it? Okay. Stop me if you have a question, because that's what today is all about, making sure we understand how to do this. All right, so make sure you keep it the same width, so I'm not going to change the width at all. And now step 4 says, without changing the width of your compass, place the pointed end on A prime, so now come down to the point that you constructed, and draw an arc. So again, make sure your pointed end is on A prime, and then just move it back and forth to create an arc on your straight line. Okay. So now, step 5 says where your arc and that new segment intersect, put a point. So where the arc is that you just drew and the line segment that was already there, put a point. And you're going to name it B prime. Okay, and from A prime to B prime should be the exact length it is from A to B. Okay, now they didn't say they just wanted a recreation of AB, they said they wanted 2AB, right? So I need double the length. So now I'm going to repeat those same steps again. So make sure you still have it that same width of AB, right? If you were to put it back on there and make your arc, that it would be in the same spot. Pick your compass back up and come back down, but this time put your pointed end on B prime and make another arc. Okay, this is a new point, so I am going to draw my point there, but I'm going to call this one B double prime. And now from A prime to B double prime is 2 lengths of AB. All right. Now, obviously, we are human. We are not perfect. If you accidentally slightly moved your pencil open or closed, right, even if it didn't seem like it to you, it could end up making this just a millimeter or 2 off, right? But it should be pretty close to, if one segment was 32, this should be pretty close to 64 millimeters, right? So if you were to take your ruler and measure it, you should be pretty close to 64. So mine looks like it's somewhere between 64 and 65. So we were pretty close, okay? All right, so any questions about that segment? Okay. All right, so let's look at example 3. Example 3 says to construct a segment that is half of xy. Okay, so if you look back on those instructions on the instruction page, the second set of instructions here is how to construct a segment that is half the length. Okay, so now I'm just going to read the directions from this portion. Okay, so again, it says for step 1, we're going to place the pointed end of the compass on X and the open end of the compass a half past way to across Y. Now, you're going to end up recreating the same thing that we did on number 1. So before you do that, you're going to go ahead and put that free point, just like we did up above, and then take your straight edge and draw your line a little longer than what you think it will be. Now remember, you're making this half the length of the one that's already there, so it doesn't need to be super long. Make it plenty long though. Okay. All right. So going back to those instructions, it says the first step is to take the pointed end of the compass and place it on X. And then you're going to put your pencil over halfway towards Y. Okay, so you want it more than halfway through the line. So there would be about halfway, right? I want it a little bit further than that. Okay, so just over halfway. All right, once you have that, you're going to put your compass with the pointed end on X and the pencil end on the segment and make an arc that's pretty big. Okay, so this time rock back and forth a little bit further. So I'm going to have it going all the way up here and all the way back down here. Okay, again, make sure you do not change the width. Okay, keep it the same size. So that was us drawing about 1/3 of a circle, like it said on step number 2. Step number 3 says without moving your compass, now place the pointed end on Y. So you're going to flip your compass around, put the pointed end on Y, and make another 1/3 of a circle. So again, we're making a pretty big arc. Okay, these two arcs should intersect each other. If they don't intersect each other, you probably just made your space between the point and the pointed end and the pencil a little bit too big for the space that you're working with. So it should look something like this, depending on how far apart you had your pencil and pointed end. Okay, so again, we just put the pointed end on X, pencil end a little over halfway, drew a big arc, and then flipped it around and drew the exact same arc. Okay. All right. So now you are going to take your straight edge and put it along the intersection points up here and down here. And then take your pencil and draw a straight line that goes through the two intersection points. So it goes through where they intersected up here and where they intersected down here. All right, so once you have your straight edge there, you are going to label the line that you just drew with the intersection of the line XY, this point right here. They said we're supposed to label it M. So we're labeling it M because this should be the midpoint of that line, right? It should be right in the middle. Okay. Okay, now you're going to follow the steps for constructing a segment to reconstruct XM. So now we go back up to our instructions from that first part. We already did the free point with the line, right? We already did step 1 and step 2. Now you're going to take your compass Okay, this time I'm trying to recreate half the line. So whenever I put my pointed end down, I'm going to put it on X, and I'm going to put my pencil end on M. Okay. So just make sure pointed end is here, pencil end is here. Stand it up. And make you a arc that goes through M, kind of like the one that went through B on the problem before. Doesn't need to be as big as the two that we just drew. Just needs to go through M. Okay, and then remember, we don't change the width. Keep it the exact same size. Pick it up and come put the pointed end on your free point and your pencil end here. All right, so this point was a recreation of X. All right, so I'm going to name this X prime. And the point where that arc intersected our line was a recreation of point M, so I'm going to call this M prime. So the segment from X prime to M prime is half the length of the segment XY. Okay. Now, I know that the compass is kind of tricky to deal with, and especially because we want it to be exactly right, it's going to take us some time, right, to make sure that we have it lined up exactly how we want it, but you'll get quicker at it the more you do them, okay? All right, let's see here. Let's look at example 4. So example 4 says to measure the angle to the nearest degree. Okay, so this is what you need your protractor for. So everybody grab your protractor. So if you notice on your protractor, it goes from 0 to 180 degrees one direction and the other direction. You guys see that? Okay, you're going to want to look at the inside numbers. So the one where it starts with 0 over here. Okay. Now, depending on which way your angle is facing, that could change. But since our angle opens this direction, we're going to want to look at the numbers on the inside. Okay. All right. So what you're going to do you see this little T in the protractor right here in the middle? You're going to put that T right on top of the point at K. Put that T right on point K. And then the line that's labeled 0, you want to put that right on top of the ray KL. Okay. So your T is at point K, and the line of 0 degrees is right on top of KL. All right. And we are measuring this to the nearest degree. Okay. So how many degrees approximately do we think that this is? 50, 52. Okay, so somewhere around there. It depends on if you have your line right above it, right on it, a little bit below it, right? I would say it's probably pretty close to 52. I would agree with that. So I'm going to say that this is about 52 degrees. Okay. All right. So we are supposed to be reconstructing this angle. So if you look back at your list of instructions, that's this portion here at the bottom, right? How to construct a congruent angle. So we're going to follow these 6 steps to do this, okay? All right, so step 1 says you get one free ray. So you're going to draw your ray that has an endpoint of K prime. So I'm going to draw my endpoint and label it K prime. And then take my straight edge and draw that ray coming straight out from it. Make sure we make it a little longer than we need to. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put that arrow at the end because I am supposed to be drawing a ray, right? Okay. So there's step 1. We created our free ray and labeled the endpoint of it K prime. So that was a recreation of this point here. It now says place the pointed end of your compass on the vertex K, open your compass, and draw an arc that intersects KL and KJ. Okay, so the pointed end is going to go on K. Make sure that you don't open your pencil too wide, because if you do, it's going to end up going past KJ over there, right? And we want our pencil, whenever we make our arc, to go through both KL, which would be this right here, and KJ, this right here. So just make sure you don't open it too terribly wide. Okay, so I'm going to open mine about like this, so a little bit around halfway between K and L is where I'm going to put my pencil. All right, so now that I have it measured to the width I want, I'm putting my pointed end on that point K, stand that up, and make an arc that's going to go through both of those rays. So it's going to look something like that, okay? Once you draw that ray, make sure you're really careful not to change the width of your compass at all, okay? All right, so followed step 2. Step 3 says without moving your compass, you are now going to place your pointed end on K prime over here and draw another arc just like the one we did here, but you're going to make it a little bit longer, right, to make sure that whenever we go to create our other ray that it goes plenty far. So it goes through the line we've already created and a little bit further than what we previously had. Okay. I went a little bit further than the last time. Okay. So once we have drawn that arc, it says to label the intersection of K prime with the point L prime. So right here where that intersected, I'm supposed to name this L prime. Okay, does everybody have that arc before I move on? Okay, so we've got our arc. We named our new point L prime. Now you're going to place your pointed end of the compass where you had the intersection of your arc and the original ray, KL, right here. Okay. And then your pencil end is going to be where it intersected the ray KJ. Okay, once you have it measured to that width, you're going to draw a small arc where your arc intersected that ray up there on the top. Okay, so I had it here, and I drew an arc there. Okay, make sure you're really careful not to change the width at all once you do that. And then you're going to bring it over to your drawing and put your pointed end again where the arc intersects the bottom line and your pencil on the arc and draw that same little bitty arc. Okay, so here I put my pointed end here, pencil end here, and drew it again. Okay. It says once you've done that, to name the intersection point of your two arcs that you had drawn as J prime. And then your last step is to take your straight edge and draw a ray that connects K prime and J prime. A little bit longer than needed. Okay. And this angle here should be equivalent to the angle over here. Again, we're not perfect. We may have made some tiny tweaks to our measurement when we moved it, but you can double check to see if you're pretty close to where you're supposed to be. So it looks like, oops, I made this a little bit crooked when I drew my line, didn't I? Fix that. All right. So let's see here. So it looks like I'm maybe a little closer to the 55 this time, but that's okay. As long as we're still pretty close. We're not perfect. We'll make mistakes when we move it. But generally speaking, this should be the same angle, okay? All right, any questions about that one? We'll get better at it the more we do them, okay? All right, so once you have that one constructed, if you'll flip it over onto the back, okay. So on number 5, I want you to mark out this part where it says to construct the bisector. We're going to do that in another unit when we talk about bisector. So we're not going to do that part today. But we are going to take our protractor and measure this angle. So remember, we put the T right on the vertex, and then you want your line that's 0 degrees to be right on that bottom ray. And what do we think? How many degrees will we say this is? 55. Yeah. This would be a 55-degree angle. Okay. Okay. Example 6 says use your protractor to draw a 48-degree angle in the space below. So this time we're not recreating something that's already drawn, we're creating our own. So we start out with that same first step, which is to do some free point. Make sure you do it kind of close to the bottom so you have room for the rest of the angle, or close to the bottom of that space anyway. And then take your straight edge and draw that ray coming through from that point. Again, we always make it a little longer than what we probably need. Okay. All right, then I'm going to take my protractor, put the T on my vertex and the line of 0 on that bottom ray. All right, and I'm supposed to be measuring 48 degrees. So that's going to be somewhere in between the 45 and the 50, right? So give yourself a point a little bit closer to the 50 than to the 45. So there's a little space in between here. So you're going to put a little point there. Okay. And then, now that you have these 2 points, you're going to take your straight edge and just connect the 2 of them. Okay, and this should be approximately a 48-degree angle.
You just find 48 on here?
And just make yourself a little point.